Welcome back to the Deep Dive, the place where we try to take all that scattered research and turn it into something, really crystalline and applicable for you.
And today we are definitely putting on our behavioral scientist hats.
We really are. We are diving into a topic that I think is both, well, heartwarming and maybe a little maddening for, I think, every single dog owner out there.
Yeah.
We're talking about the intricate world of canine deception.
It's a truly intriguing subject, and it's so much more complex than just, a simple trick they learn. We've pulled together a really comprehensive guide on advanced dog behavior, some cognitive science stuff too.
Right.
And we're using it to try and understand exactly how our beloved companions manage to master what the sources keep calling the art of deception.
And we're zeroing in on one specific thing, which is the often hilarious phenomenon of dogs faking injuries.
The Oscar-worthy performance.
Exactly. And the mission today is, I think, really crucial. It goes way beyond just being amused by how clever they are. We want to equip you, the listener, with the knowledge, the tools you need to, effectively navigate these tricky behaviors.
It's all about being able to tell the difference, isn't it?
It is. Distinguishing genuine physical distress from a really calculated act of deceit. And ultimately, using that understanding to build a deeper, more trust-based relationship with your dog.
Even when they're trying to pull a fast one on you.
Especially then.
And I think the foundational realization here, the place we have to start, is acknowledging the profound level of canine intelligence. I mean, we're not talking about simple instinct.
Not at all.
Dogs are incredibly capable observers.
Mm.
They are rapid learners, and yes, they are absolutely capable of some pretty sophisticated manipulation. They use these strategies on purpose to get attention, to get treats, or maybe most commonly, to get out of those things they really don't want to do.
The bath. It's always the bath.
The bath, nail trims, a training session when they'd rather be sleeping.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because to really treat this seriously, we have to move past just, oh, my dog looks sad.
Right.
We're dealing with sophisticated, goal-directed behavior. This isn't passive. It's an active manipulation, and it's rooted in a really deep understanding of us, of our human response patterns.
You know us so well.
So let's just launch right into the core question.
Mm-hmm.
Do dogs actually fake injuries? I mean, is that a real thing, or is this just us being human and anthropomorphizing what's just a learned way to avoid something?
It's a great question, and the scientific consensus from all the material we've reviewed is a definitive yes.
Really?
Yes. Dogs are absolutely capable of faking injuries. This isn't just an urban legend or, a funny viral clip you see online.
Right.
It's a documented, it's a studied behavior, and it's actually really compelling evidence of their cognitive flexibility and their frankly, impressive ability to manipulate their environment.
And we are the environment.
We are the primary variable they are trying to manipulate.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me, because we need to talk about the specific visual cues that owners miss. Most of us are looking for something obvious, a broken bone or big cut. But deception is subtle. What are the specific visual red flags that the sources detail? The things that signal a calculated act, not real pain.
It all comes down to two things: inconsistency and context.
Okay.
The most common, the most easily recognizable deceptive act is the inconsistent limp. Or you could call it selective lameness.
Selective lameness, I like that.
Yeah, the dog might be limping or favoring a paw dramatically, while they're in the living room and you're watching TV. But then they show a sudden, miraculous recovery just seconds later.
And that recovery is almost always tied to something.
Oh, absolutely. It's often specifically when the stimulus that, cancels out the need for the performance is introduced. The classic example is the sound of the treat bag crinkling.
I think every dog owner has seen that moment of just instant, confusing healing. It's whiplash.
It is.
They're hobbling along, looking absolutely pathetic, demanding all your sympathy. But the second you even ask, hey, want to go for a ride? Or you open the cheese drawer.
Full speed, full, unrestricted, perfect movement.
No sign of injury whatsoever.
And that speed recovery, that, immediate stop to all the symptoms, when the positive reward is on the table, that is absolutely the crucial component. But the deception can take other forms, too.
Like what?
They might use attention-seeking vocalizations, a really high-pitched yelp, or a whimper that seems totally out of proportion to, any physical contact or movement.
Right, like you barely brush against them and they scream.
Exactly. Or they might display these generalized signs of lethargy or discomfort that just seem to come out of nowhere, holding up a leg dramatically, keeping it curled up close to their
Oh,
chest.
yeah. The three-legged hawk of sadness.
That's a classic tactic. It is pure theater, and it's designed to get the maximum human response, which is immediate sympathetic intervention.
Let's spend a bit more time on that inconsistent limping, because the sources really highlight that as this single biggest red flag, the thing that separates a fake from a genuine problem. What makes it inconsistent beyond that, dramatic recovery we just talked about?
It really comes down to stimulus control. Think about it this way. If a dog has a genuine physical injury, let's say a strained muscle in their back left leg, that pain is a consistent internal stimulus.
Always there.
It's always there. They will favor that leg pretty consistently no matter what room they're in, the time of day, or who's watching them. But a fake injury, that's under external stimulus control.
Meaning the audience.
The audience. The performance is only triggered and it's only maintained when the audience is present and when the desired outcome is still something they can get.
So if the dog is out of sight, maybe they're trotting perfectly fine in the backyard, or they're walking normally when it's only, I don't know, a family member they don't see as a soft touch present. That's the proof. That inconsistency is proof of intention.
Exactly. They drop the act when the audience leaves or when the reward mechanism, you, is removed. And this isn't just, them forgetting. It demonstrates a really complex learned association that I think proves it's intentional.
It's so sophisticated when you break it down.
It is. It requires the dog to assess the situation, remember the behavior that worked before, gauge your current attention level, and then execute the performance. It's a whole checklist.
But wait, I have a question about that. Couldn't that just be distraction? If a dog is really, really focused on a high-value treat, like a piece of steak, wouldn't they momentarily forget a small, dull pain anyway? How do the sources separate true intentional deception from just, being distracted by something amazing?
That is an excellent probing question, and it gets right to the heart of, how dogs think. The difference lies in the repertoire of the behavior and the absence of that initial stimulus.
Okay, explain that.
If it were just distraction, a slightly painful dog might still rush for the treat, absolutely, but they would likely go back to a subtle limp right after they eat it. Or they'd show signs of discomfort when they move again.
The pain would still be there.
The pain would still be there. With true deception, the sources indicate the dog often just resumes completely normal posture and gait after the successful manipulation. And they only go back to the limp when the desired outcome is not achieved or when they need something new.
So that sustained recovery is the real kicker.
It absolutely is. And we also need to look at the timing of fake versus real injuries. A genuine physical problem often has a gradual onset. A little bit of stiffness that turns into a noticeable limp over a few hours or a day as inflammation sets in.
Right, it develops.
It develops. A fake injury, however, can appear just suddenly, out of the blue with no apparent physical cause, and often it's immediately after a command the dog wants to avoid or a moment where the dog feels ignored.
It's that immediate high-drama transition into distress.
Exactly, which suggests the behavior is performance-based. It's calculated and it's context-dependent, not pain-based.
And crucially, linking back to the motive, the whole thing is almost always characterized by that, what the source called an attention-seeking coincidence. The injury just happens to coincide exactly with the desire for attention or treats or getting out of something.
Precisely. If that dramatic display only happens when you're on the phone or when guests arrive and the dog feels ignored, or right before you put the leash on for a walk when they'd rather be napping,
Yeah.
you have extremely strong circumstantial evidence that the dog is using a learned strategic response.
The behavior is just completely tied to getting an immediate desired outcome.
It's a tool in their toolbox.
So we've established what they do and how to spot the physical signs of the act. Now let's shift the focus. Let's look at the psychology behind the performance. We need to know why. Why do they go to such ingenious lengths to deceive us?
The root answer, and this is where we get into some behavioral science, it lies in their keen understanding of us, of human behavior. And more fundamentally, their ingrained reliance on operant conditioning.
The desire for positive outcomes.
Exactly. Dogs operate so heavily on the principle of positive reinforcement. If they perform an action and that action leads immediately and reliably to a reward, They are highly, highly likely to repeat it.
Even if the action is based on a total lie.
Especially then if it works.
That framework makes perfect sense. The motive is clear. Rewards. And the source confirms this covers a huge spectrum, right? From tangible things like extra treats or a new chew toy,
To social rewards, like immediate cuddles, that soothing voice we use, affection.
all the way to negative reinforcement, which is just getting out of things they don't want to do, avoiding the kennel, the bath, the tough training exercise. They're just really efficient operators in maximizing their own comfort and getting resources.
And this is where their social intelligence just really shines. The sources highlight their ability to tap directly into our deepest human nurturing instincts.
They know our weak spots.
They are incredible at reading our most subtle body language, our emotional cues. By faking distress or showing they're vulnerable, they completely bypass our rational decision-making.
Yeah, you just react.
You react.
Yeah.
They trigger our innate, deeply human need to care for something in distress, making us instantly prioritize their needs. We drop whatever we were doing to rush to their side with sympathy and resources.
They know exactly which emotional buttons to push to just completely short-circuit our entire schedule and, our cognitive load. It's a very fast, very reliable way to make themselves the absolute center of the universe.
They absolutely do. And to really illustrate this learned association, this process that turns an accident into a calculated strategy, the source gives two specific and really illuminating anecdotal examples. They show how accidental positive reinforcement can just cement this manipulative behavior.
Okay, let's start with the Max scenario. This feels like the classic example of accidental reinforcement turning into intentional manipulation really fast.
It is. So imagine Max is playing, maybe a little too rambunctiously, slips on a slick floor, and lets out a genuine, surprised yelp. The owner, naturally, is startled and rushes over.
Of course.
And what happens next is the critical sequence. The owner immediately stops playing, showers Max with intense affection, uses that soothing, "Oh, are you okay, baby?"
Voice.
We all have that voice.
We all have it. Maybe even provides a high-value treat to make him feel better. And that seemingly innocent, loving reaction, that's the turning point in the dog's behavioral learning.
So Max isn't thinking, "Oh, I slipped." Max is doing the calculation. Yelping plus limping equals immediate, overwhelming owner attention and, hey, delicious high-value rewards.
That is the exact cognitive connection the dog makes. The source notes that Max, being a smart pup, he quickly internalizes that this specific set of behaviors, this theatrical display, it yields immediate, highly positive results. And the key part is, the behavior is now completely separated from the original accident.
Completely decoupled. He intentionally starts to use it specifically when he craves tension or wants to interrupt something he doesn't like. That accidental pain is now codified as a powerful tool in his manipulation arsenal.
And then we have Luna. Her story illustrates the same mechanism, but more in the context of avoidance or gaining comfort during something they find, boring or uncomfortable.
Right. So the Luna scenario involves a pup who starts to limp and whine while she's out on a walk. Maybe she's getting tired, or maybe they're passing a noisy construction site she doesn't like.
Okay.
The concerned owner, again, immediately stops the walk, checks Luna over thoroughly, and maybe even carries her, or offers a long session of comfort and soothing words right there on the sidewalk.
I've seen people do this.
We all have, and the message Luna gets is undeniable and profound. Limping equals an immediate end to this undesirable activity and the start of high-quality, focused attention and physical care.
So if we connect this back to the bigger picture, to operant conditioning, these examples just highlight how fast and efficient this learning process is. This isn't some instinctual, hardwired deception.
No, it's a meticulously learned response. It's developed through observation and repeated instances of positive reinforcement. It's just a highly successful way to change the owner's immediate behavior.
It just becomes their go-to strategy.
It's the path of least resistance for them to get what they want from their human. From the dog's point of view, they might be thinking, why should I engage in 10 minutes of demanding focus during training when I can get the same level of affection and a piece of chicken by just holding my leg up for 10 seconds?
That cognitive shortcut just solidifies the whole behavior.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean for us, for the audience, for caring owners who also value honesty and clear communication in our relationships with our dogs? We have to become like expert canine behavioral detectives to figure this out.
We do.
To successfully distinguish a genuine acute health concern from one of these clever, rehearsed acts, what are the definitive warning signs we need to watch for, according to the source, to really make that call?
To become that discerning owner, we need a checklist. And it's rooted in consistency, context, and physical evidence. There are three critical warning signs. The first, and this is the most telling behavioral indicator, is inconsistent symptoms.
We talked about this a bit before.
Right. If the dog shows signs of discomfort only in really specific contexts, maybe only when the owner who always gives in is present, or only when you ask them to do a command they hate, that is a massive red flag. It indicates external control over the behavior.
Because real pain, a genuine injury, it doesn't care who's in the room or where you are.
Exactly. Pain is a biological reality, not a performance choice. A genuine injury typically involves consistent signs of pain or discomfort regardless of the situation or the audience.
A dog with a sprain is going to favor that leg, whether they're alone, outside, or begging for your dinner.
Precisely. The deceptive act, though, it's a situational performance. It vanishes when the motivation for the act is removed. And a key way to check for this is to observe the dog when they think they're unobserved.
The secret observation.
Right. Watch them through a pet cam or just subtly from a window when they're in the yard. If the limp completely vanishes, case closed.
The second sign is the most dramatic one and, honestly, the most amusing. Sudden recovery.
Yeah. If your dog goes from what looks like crippling lameness to a full-on sprint instantaneously, the second the desired goal is
The
achieved.
treat is delivered, the walk is over, the training session is canceled.
It strongly suggests the injury was manufactured. The moment that incentive disappears, the performance just terminates immediately. The source describes this recovery as happening the instant the dog gets what they were performing for. There's no lingering pain, no slow return to normal.
It's the ultimate curtain call on their Oscar-worthy act. Okay, so the third sign requires a more hands-on observational approach, lack of physical evidence.
This is where we have to do a gentle but thorough physical check. And it means we have to be familiar with our dog's baseline anatomy.
You have to know what normal feels like.
You do. A genuine physical problem, a sprain, a strain, an embedded splinter. It will almost always have secondary physical signs. We need to check for swelling, visible wounds, or changes in temperature around the area. And crucially, we're looking for a consistent pain reaction.
What does it mean exactly?
Gently feeling the supposedly injured area should produce a repeatable, measurable discomfort response if the injury is real. If the dog only flinches dramatically when they see you looking, but then they let you firmly and gently manipulate the area without reacting when they're distracted, that's a huge red flag.
That brings us to a really crucial practical step for owners, one that we have to stress. Even if we suspect deception, the dog's physical well-being has to be the absolute first priority. Always.
Always. Absolutely. The source emphasizes this so strongly. Your initial response must always be to treat the symptoms as real until you can prove otherwise. If you are unsure if this is a brand new behavior or if the dog shows any reluctance to bear weight consistently, it's non-negotiable. You consult a veterinarian for a thorough professional examination. Prioritizing the dog's well-being first is always the right ethical response. It is so much better to have a vet confirm your dog is fine than to overlook a real injury because you're feeling cynical.
And beyond that immediate physical check, we need to use a powerful discernment strategy, one that focuses on the dog's recent behavioral history and all that contextual data.
We have to become data gatherers. Look closely at the dog's recent past. Was this specific dramatic behavior reinforced before? For instance, did the dog fake a limp last week and did you immediately stop the bath they hated?
Right, connecting the dots.
Did they use a subtle whine to get access to your bed last month? We have to consider if there were previous instances where faking an injury or just showing distress immediately led to a desirable outcome. If you can draw a clear line between that deceptive behavior and a high-value reward or avoidance, you are very likely dealing with a learned strategy, not a medical emergency.
So understanding the function of the behavior, what it does for the dog, is way more important than just observing the form of the behavior, the limp itself.
Precisely. The form is just the drama. The function is the reward it gets. And if the function is clearly to get attention or get out of a task, then we know exactly how to intervene.
Which leads us to the most important proactive measure an owner has to take to stop this from becoming a deeply ingrained habit. And that's proactive boundary setting.
Yes. Establishing a strict, consistent rule of not rewarding suspicious behavior is fundamentally crucial to discourage future manipulation. Once you have seen the vet and you've ruled out a genuine physical injury, any attention you give after that, the cooing, the sympathy, the rewards, it only reinforces and strengthens the behavior.
You have to treat it like a request for attention, not a medical crisis.
Exactly. Manage it as a behavior, not as an injury.
Okay, so We've identified the signs of deception. We understand the motives are all about positive reinforcement. Now, if we suspect deception and the vet is given the all clear, we can't just ignore it forever. We need a targeted action plan to prevent this from becoming a permanent successful strategy for them.
And this is where we move from just observing to practical, consistent intervention. The core strategies for addressing these faked injuries all focus on removing the reinforcement the dog wants, while at the same time strengthening alternative, more honest ways for them to communicate.
Strategy 1 is simple in theory, but I think this is often the hardest one for loving owners to actually do successfully. Strategy 1, ignore the behavior.
It's the principle of non-reinforcement, or what behaviorists call extinction. When the dog starts to fake an injury, you have to completely withhold the thing they want.
The attention, the comfort, the treats.
All of it. And you have to continue the unwanted activity if it's safe to do so. This is not about punishment. It is about showing them that this deceptive behavior is now functionally useless.
You have to stop rushing over dramatically. Don't make eye contact. Just continue what you were doing.
Exactly. And the common pitfall here is consistency, isn't it? An owner ignores the behavior for 5 minutes, the dog amps up the drama, and then the owner caves because they feel guilty or the whining is just too annoying.
Oh, for sure.
And that sporadic reinforcement is the worst possible thing you can do. It creates what's called a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, which is the most powerful way to make a behavior resistant to ever going away.
So if the dog knows that faking sometimes works, even if it's only 1 out of 10 times,
They will persist. And the deceptive behavior will actually get stronger and more dramatic during what's called an extinction burst. The owner has to commit to ignoring the behavior 100% of the time, immediately after ruling out a real injury. You have to become incredibly dull and unresponsive to the act.
okay, strategy 2 is about addressing the underlying emotional cause, which is often just boredom or anxiety or an unfulfilled mental need. Strategy 2, provide mental stimulation.
Boredom is a massive trigger for attention-seeking behaviors, and that includes elaborate deception. A dog that's physically healthy but just mentally understimulated will find any way possible to engage their owner.
Even negatively, because negative attention is still attention.
It's still attention. We need to make sure the dog gets plenty of high-quality mental engagement. This means interactive food toys, puzzle feeders, structured training sessions with positive reinforcement, and just engaging structured playtime.
So it's not just about more exercise. A tired dog can still be a mentally bored dog. It's about challenging their brain, giving them a job to do, which inherently reduces the time and motivation they have to plan their next theatrical stunt.
Absolutely. When a dog's mental needs are met, they are far less likely to resort to desperate manipulative antics that just come from restlessness or a simple lack of interaction. Mental stimulation is often more exhausting and fulfilling for them than physical exercise alone.
And the third strategy is the counter-conditioning piece. It's the classic application of positive reinforcement, but applied correctly this time. Strategy 3, reward genuine behavior.
This is so critical for building a trust-based relationship. We have to actively praise and reward genuine, healthy behaviors. We're essentially teaching the dog the honest way to get our affection.
So if your dog is just playing normally, walking well, resting calmly, or just interacting without any performance,
Reward that heavily, with high-value affection, with treats. This teaches the dog that honesty and normal actions get high-value rewards, which successfully cancels out the perceived need for deception.
you're effectively changing the dog's internal math. Instead of limping equals treat, the calculation becomes calmly sitting or playing normally equals treat.
Precisely. We're building an alternative, successful behavioral pathway that provides the desired outcome, attention, resources, without the need for manipulation. And the more reliable that honest pathway is, the faster the deceptive behavior will fade away.
Now, before we move on to the contextual influences, we have to circle back one more time to that critical distinction. When it's real, it's so easy once you start spotting the deception to become cynical, but we have to stay hyper-vigilant for genuine issues.
It is paramount. We have to be looking for those consistent signs of discomfort that persist no matter the environment or who's watching. These signs include things like visible wounds, localized swelling or heat, a refusal to put any weight down even when they're highly motivated.
Like even for the cheese.
Even for the cheese. Consistently favoring a limb no matter the context, or marked changes in their overall behavior. A drop in appetite, lethargy, increased irritability. These can all signal general internal pain.
So the core advice remains the same. Trust your gut. If there is any doubt at all if the symptoms are consistent or if they continue even when you're not reinforcing them, always prioritize that immediate vet visit. Your ability to observe and identify these consistent signs is what makes you a responsible, discerning owner.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to some of the external factors that influence and reinforce this behavior. The source raises a really important question. How is modern human culture, specifically through technology, inadvertently contributing to and shaping this behavior?
You mean social media?
I mean, the contextual influence of social media.
Yeah, we are a culture that is obsessed with viral pets.
Hmm.
And social media inadvertently popularizes and reinforces these deceptive behaviors globally. We see clips of pets' Oscar-worthy performances go viral, earning millions of views, likes, shares, because they're hilarious and entertaining.
But here's the mechanism of reinforcement. These entertaining clips, they inadvertently highlight and reward the manipulative behavior across the broader dog-owning community. When owners see this behavior celebrated and rewarded with immense digital affirmation, they might subconsciously seek it out, or respond differently to, or even encourage minor dramatic behaviors in their own dogs.
It creates a powerful digital positive feedback loop.
It does.
Let's break that down, that digital positive reinforcement loop. How does a stranger liking a video online actually affect the dog who's lying on my carpet?
The loop is indirect, but it's really potent. The dog performs the deception, the limp. The owner films it, uploads it, hoping for viral success. The video gets immense external social affirmation, likes, comments, views.
Right.
This external reinforcement elevates the value of the deceptive behavior for the owner. The owner then, maybe unconsciously, repeats the conditions that led to the behavior. Maybe they ignore the dog more often to try and trigger it, or they pay extra attention when the dog starts the performance, which in turn strengthens the dog's manipulative strategy.
So the dog is essentially being reinforced by the owner's amplified attention and excitement after the digital success.
Exactly. The dog learns. The more dramatic I am, the more excited and focused my owner gets, and the more treats and camera time I receive.
That is a fascinating and complex feedback loop. It's our human desire for digital validation that's driving the dog's deceptive success.
It shows how profoundly intertwined our social reward systems are with our dog's behavioral choices.
We also need to consider the contextual influence of breed. The source makes it clear that while any dog can be deceptive, this is a learned skill, some breeds might leverage their intelligence and problem-solving skills more often, or maybe just employ the tactic more dramatically.
And we have to emphasize, breed is a broad generalization, but it can inform a propensity. The source specifically mentions smaller breeds.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it suggests they might use their size and their inherent cute factor to get extra sympathy from their owners. I mean, they already elicit high nurturing responses from us, which makes the deception particularly effective.
A small dog holding up a tiny paw often triggers a much faster, more intense emotional reaction than, say, a big German Shepherd doing the same thing.
Exactly. And furthermore, breeds that are known for high intelligence and high problem-solving abilities, like border collies, poodles, even highly trainable retrievers, they might be quicker to adopt this deceptive strategy once they realize how effective it is. Their cognitive capacity just allows them to generalize the successful behavior really rapidly from one context to another.
But the crucial caveat here, which we can't overlook, is individuality. This is a learned behavior.
Correct. The source fundamentally emphasizes that every single dog is unique. Their behavior is influenced by this complex interplay of their individual genetics, their specific living environment, and critically, their personal history of reinforcement.
So general breed tendencies are just a potential starting point.
That's all they are. What truly matters for intervention is the specific dog's learning curve and their owner's reaction history. And stepping back from that, we have to look at the overall canine-human bond because that is the ultimate context for all of this behavior. The sources stress this repeatedly. Dogs are keenly attuned observers of human behavior. They learn from our emotional reactions, and they adapt their strategies accordingly.
And that profound adaptability is what makes managing this manipulative behavior so critical. It's not about punishing the dog for being smart. We should probably internally celebrate their cleverness.
I think so.
But it's about understanding the underlying emotional and motivational reasons so we can take proactive steps to discourage these acts from becoming the default strategy in the relationship.
And understanding the motive, that desperate desire for attention or resources, is the key to addressing it successfully. If a dog is resorting to this level of complex, energy-consuming deception, it often suggests a perceived need isn't being consistently met through honest means.
Or As we discussed, the honest means are just perceived as too much work compared to the immediate high-value reward of faking distress.
Exactly.
So addressing the deception isn't just about stopping the limp, it's about making sure the dog feels so secure and loved and adequately stimulated that they don't feel the need to perform an emergency act just to get basic resources.
And the key to harmony in the dog-human relationship, according to all the source materials, it really rests on three reinforcing principles: consistency, positive reinforcement of honest behavior, and crystal clear boundaries.
And inconsistency is the relationship killer here.
It's the behavioral poison. Inconsistency teaches the dog that deception sometimes works, which again is the definition of that powerful variable ratio schedule that makes behaviors incredibly difficult to get rid of.
So consistency in withholding rewards for suspicious behavior while actively and reliably rewarding genuine, honest behavior. That's how we manage these manipulative tendencies.
And it's how we ensure a harmonious, healthy relationship that's built on mutual understanding, not on manipulation.
And ultimately, the goal is always to focus on trust. We want a relationship where the dog feels profoundly secure and loved without having to resort to an elaborate, emotionally draining performance every time they want to cuddle or for a walk to end.
Building a strong, trusting relationship through reliable quality time and consistent reward for good behavior helps the dog internalize the truth that they do not need deception to gain affection, love, or resources. They need to know that their genuine, normal actions are more than enough to maintain that bond and receive everything they desire.
When that bond is robust and predictable, the motivational need for all this dramatic manipulation, it just drastically decreases.
It really does.
This has been a deeply detailed exploration into the intricate world of canine deception. We've covered everything from their fundamental intelligence and the learned behavioral pathways to the specific, nuanced physical signs that help us decipher the truth behind their most dramatic displays.
And the critical takeaway for responsible owners is layered. First, we have to appreciate their intelligence and their adaptability. I mean, their clever acts, while they can be inconvenient, are genuinely a testament to their cognitive abilities and sophisticated problem-solving skills.
And second,
Second, we have a duty to guide them towards honest, communicative behaviors. And we do that through rigorous consistency, clear boundaries, and the appropriate application of positive reinforcement.
so the next time your furry friend decides to pull off a dramatic, heart-wrenching performance worthy of an Oscar, remember the protocols we talked about. You can celebrate their cleverness internally because they are brilliant.
They are.
But externally, you have to gently guide them toward honesty and trust using the actionable strategies we outlined today.
And here is a final provocative thought for you to consider as you wrap up this deep dive and return to your life with your clever companion. If the core motivation behind faking injuries is a desperate desire for attention or resources, and the limp is just one strategy, what subtle, non-injury related behaviors might your dog be exhibiting right now that are also cleverly designed to manipulate your immediate response?
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about the specific timing of their quiet stare, the strategic placement of their head on your lap, or a specific non-distressed whimper they only use when you're busy with something else. The deception might be much broader and much more constant than just the physical limp.
Something to mull over and explore on your own. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the sneaky, brilliant, and ultimately very lovable world of your favorite canine companions.